2 o'clock, and it's MassPAC Monday at the Federation for Children with Special Needs. Welcome. My name is Leslie, and I'm here today to talk about um, the newest guidance that came out from our Department of Education on school reopening. It's an initial guidance document. It's 17 pages long plus an appendix, and a lot of thought and time went into this guidance. And I thought we'd discuss it a little bit today because I think this is a role that CPACs can play in fulfilling their duty to be an advisor to the school district. The law states that the CPAC, among many of its duties, should advise the school committee on matters that pertain to special education and the safety of students. And this is a time when I think they need to hear some feedback from families of children with special needs about what school reopening would mean for those families and what would work and what wouldn't work. On June 25th, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education here in Massachusetts published this guidance. It's really requiring districts to spend the next several weeks in a planning process. I know a lot of districts have already started the planning process and come up with three different plans to allow for some flexibility depending on health concerns. Safety and health is foremost at the forefront of all of the planning and should be. So they're asking for the benefit of all of our students to focus and try to come up with plans that would best serve students. And we know in-person instruction is really key. We did have remote learning this spring. That was a great effort, but I think it's very difficult for a lot of different students, and it didn't work in all circumstances. So the department is looking for school districts to come up with three different plans: an in-person plan with safety requirements, a hybrid model, and if necessary, a fallback to a remote learning plan in case health conditions change in the fall. And, being very flexible and having all that planning in place so that schools districts can react. But they're really trying to get as many students as possible in-person settings to allow for instruction to happen in schools. There are some safety requirements. All students that are in grade 2 and above are required to wear masks that the families should be providing. If they're unable to provide a mask, the schools will have uh, disposable masks that students can use. All the adults in schools will be wearing masks. There will be exceptions for some students who might have some medical conditions or different needs. There'll be mask breaks so that students can take off their masks and maybe have recess outside. But they will need to wear the masks in school and on the bus. Um, what's interesting is the physical distancing change. While the CDC has recommended 6 feet of social type of distancing between people, that's really if you don't have access to a mask, whereas the World Health Organization has said 3 feet. So the schools have decided, the district has decided that all desks should be set at a minimum of 3 feet apart, and if possible, 6 feet, but that minimum distance is 3 feet. And if necessary, they're supposed to use alternative spaces in the school for instruction, like the libraries, maybe the cafeteria, because they're going to ask students to eat in the classroom. They're going to try to have schools create these cohorts of students that are together at any given time, and that, to minimize the mixing of students. And perhaps teachers will rotate from classroom to classroom, and the students will stay in the classroom. Um, it really depends on what type of plan goes forward. If it's a hybrid model, there might only be half the students attending 1 week, and then for week A and week B, they would be home with remote learning and then return back again. So there might be smaller groups. So that there's What's interesting is there's no maximum setting for a classroom like there is for extended school year this summer. We're 10 in a classroom. So there is some flexibility there for schools to move forward with in-person instruction and just try to maintain some physical distancing in the instruction setting. We know that there's needs to be training done for staff and those working in schools. There's going to be more additional guidance coming on transportation and also for special education. They emphasized in this guidance that schools should really just keep the communication going and maybe work with a family survey so that they can understand where families are at right now, what their concerns are, and they can address them appropriately in these plans. They need to have these plans submitted to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education by August. So we're looking at a pretty short time period of about 5, maybe 6 weeks that these plans need to be developed, finalized, and submitted. And I think this is a time for the CPAC to connect to the school, connect to the school committee and the superintendent, and ask how you can be involved. How can you help? Um, and if there isn't a good connection and you're not invited to serve on any of these committees or be part of any formal process, it doesn't mean the CPAC cannot submit written uh, testimony or written guidance of its own, comments, suggestions, what a survey of their own membership has revealed, and put that forward as additional information for the school to consider when developing these plans. Most of all, we're concerned that the students of high needs, special education high needs, get as much in-person instruction as possible. In this guidance on page 22, it really addresses special education, and that's something that CPACs can look at specifically and ask their school district, how is this going to work for special ed? I know there's been some plans for extended school year to do pilot models, to do testing. It's all new for us, and I think we really need to work with our schools to make this work for as many students as possible. So hopefully by the fall, we will be reopening our school buildings. Students will be welcome back into classroom. It will look different. It will be a learning curve for everyone. And the more you can do to prepare your student, to find out what they need to do to be part of the school community, practice wearing masks, practice hand washing, practice, all of those good practices that keep everyone safe. And the more students can have those skills as they come into the classroom, that's better for all students. So new guidance out. I'll put the link in the chat box here. If you have any questions about any of this, please feel free to call the Federation. Our call center is open. You can always use one of our online intake forms, send in your question, and someone will get back to you and help you kind of figure out what your options are, what good questions to ask, and where you can go with your concerns. It's a time that we're kind of checking all of this out and figuring it out, but let's do it together and let's see if we can keep learning happening for all of our students. So thank you for checking in on MassPAC Monday. I'll also put a link in that the CPAC Summer School is starting next Tuesday night from 7 to 8 p.m. And we just ask that you register in advance. So I'll put the link in the chat box for that. And we'd love to see you in the 10 session CPAC Summer School this summer. So thank you very much. Have a great day.